Well, everyone, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Allison Indara. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a UBS employee and am one of the co-chairs of our Pride Network. And I just want to say initially, thank you so much to our global markets and investment bank partners. We're truly grateful for your support to make this event happen here today. So thank you very, very much. Few people in particular I would like to thank, Derek Capana, Mike Pasquale, Dan Murphy, Mickey Strasser, Allison Turner, and Tara McCartan. So thank you so much. We're very grateful for all of your help and support. And especially on behalf of our global markets partners and the Pride Network and our Ability Network as well, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Francesco Clark and Gayle King. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. So Francesco Clark is the author of Walking Papers and CEO and founder of Clark's Botanicals Skincare, which has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, PBS, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, and many other publications. He is a board.
Did you say CBS?
Did I? I said PBS. Did I say CBS?
You didn't
CBS is on the mind.
You
so.
didn't say CBS. I'm a little hurt. But continue.
Okay. He is a board member of the Johns Hopkins Institute for Bioethics, as well as the New York Stem Cell Foundation. Francesco is also an ambassador for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. Gayle King is an American television personality, author, and broadcast journalist for CBS News. She co-hosts CBS's flagship morning program, CBS Mornings, and before that, its predecessor, CBS This Morning. She is also an editor-at-large for O, the Oprah magazine. In 2018, King was inducted into the Broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame. She was also chosen as Times Magazine's 100 Most Influential People of 2019. So a little round of applause. We got some great people here today. Today, Francesco and Gayle will explore how we can change our mindset on impact investing to also include disabilities, in addition to gender and ethnic diversity. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Gayle. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I already know, guys, that I'm in a different place because when I walked in, I met Mike and he said, could we just have a couple of minutes because of the clothes? And I said, clothes? What is that got to do with it? Clothes. He goes, the markets. I go, oh, the markets. Because I'm thinking CLOTHES clothes. Like, Mike, is my dress okay? So because of the clothes. And then he said, Marcus, I went, no, 5 o'clock, I get it. So already I'm indifferent. I have to learn your lingo. First, I want to know, are the bank's okay? Because I'm wondering, do I need to take my money out, put it in a shoebox, and take it home?
The lights are on.
Yeah, the lights are on. That was a good sign when I walked in. But I'll tell you guys how I happen to be here from CBS, your favorite network. And years ago, do you remember the year we did that story?
Yes.
What year was it?
Just before COVID, actually.
So it's about 4 years.
Yeah.
I know it was before. I thought it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've done many stories at CBS, but
it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the year that I met Alberto.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Alberto
later.
We'll talk about him later.
Yeah.
But it was 5 years ago, and I tell you, after the interview with Francesco, I've never forgotten him. I've stayed in touch with him, and when he asked me to do this, I said, to be honest with you, I didn't even quite know what it was, but I said yes because he asked me. That's how much I admire, how I respect, and how I adore him. So that's how I came here to be here today. And of course, I wanted to be in your beautiful building. But I think it's good, Francesco, for people to get the backstory as I have heard it. You know, Taylor Swift has a song, When I Was 22, but for your song, it's when you were 24. So you're 24, you're buff, you had done some modeling, you had a 6-pack, you know, life was really great. You may still have a 6-pack, I don't know, I haven't seen you without your shirt lately. But, you know, you were buff, you were feeling good, and you had gone at the Hamptons. You had gone to the Hamptons. And what happened that weekend in the Hamptons?
I was celebrating a promotion at work.
Mm-hmm.
I was working
What was your work? Yeah.
I was working at Hearst at Harper's Bazaar in fashion. And I was living my dream life at 24 years old, where I really, looking back on it, I felt like a 15-year-old. But I wanted to prove myself to my family and to myself and I got promoted, and I was celebrating my promotion. I was alone at this house in the Hamptons. The metal ring ladder that legally should be in the deep end was somehow in the shallow end.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, it was June 1st, 75 degrees. I saw the 2 metal ring ladders coming out of the pool. I dove in. The second that I dove in, my chin hit the bottom, my head snapped back, and I shattered my C3, C4 vertebrae in the back of my neck, my spine,
Mm-hmm.
and I was paralyzed in the blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes were open. I was face down in a pool, completely alone, and I could see the little bubbles floating up from my
Yeah,
mouth.
you knew this was not good. I mean, number one, just think about that, guys, for a second. Anybody who has a pool, has been in a pool, when you see that ladder, it's always in the deep end. It's not in the shallow end because we can just walk up the steps and get out.
Yeah.
So it would stand to reason that you would dive in, but you dove in and you're instantly paralyzed. Fortunately for you, there was somebody else there because you literally could not move.
There was nobody else there.
But somebody
walked
came,
in,
yes.
and that was the thing, is that when it happened, there was this moment of impact where I could hear my mother's voice saying, not, you're drowning and you're paralyzed, but instead, the fight or flight instinct kind of kicked in, and I could hear my mother's voice saying, do you realize how much work you're going to have to do to get better?
That's what you heard in that moment?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's the weirdest thing to think about now, because I was drowning, face down. And it was like the worst British PBS murder mystery show that you could watch, and you're like, there's nobody there to save you, because when you're having this near-death experience, and this is very common, you kind of see your body from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost could see myself floating from outside of the pool and thinking about my entire life in 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But then I heard my mom's voice saying that, and then I realized, no, the glass is half full. Somehow this is going to work out.
I know. I think it's interesting that you had that thought in that moment. But somebody came and they were able to lift you out of the pool.
Yeah.
So you get to the hospital. Your father, by the way, is a medical doctor. You get to the hospital, and the prognosis is not good. What do they say?
So Dr. S, I will not say his name, but he's one of the top 3 neurosurgeons in the US, said, you have a 19% chance of surviving not only this night, but the surgery and the next 2 years of your life.
Yeah.
And by this point, my left lung had collapsed. My left vocal cord was failing, and I couldn't feel anything. I mean, my body, it felt like my body was like this table.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was foreign to me.
Okay.
You could touch it, you can't feel it.
But you can't feel it, okay.
It's nothing. It's nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm thinking is my parents are on vacation in Florida with my sister, and I'm here alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was awash in this room of mint green tiles, the operating room, with medical equipment just floating above my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to make it through that night.
Yeah. But your family comes.
Yeah.
His father, by the way, is a medical doctor. So his father knows
Yes.
good doctoring, good bedside manner. And this is where I thought it got so interesting. Because this doctor is talking to you, and he's telling your parents it doesn't look good. He'll never be able to move. His life is basically over. And your mother says what to you?
Basta qualcosa.
Which
So in
means,
Italian, move something. So I twitch my shoulder, and she looks back at the surgeon, and she goes, you don't know our son.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
really what that was.
Yes, I know. I love that.
Thank you.
But guys, can you imagine this doctor is telling his parents, he doesn't know your dad's a doctor,
No.
by the way. So he's saying it's bad. He's never going to do it. His mother in Italian is like, basically, you move something now.
Make a cake now.
Yes.
Like, it was like, do something.
Which you did.
I made lemonade.
You made lemonade.
in that
You
second.
moved something.
But I wasn't alone anymore.
Yes.
As soon as she said that.
And then your dad kind of, he didn't curse out the doctor, but he did have words with the doctor because of the way he was speaking to you.
So my father passed away on December 4th.
I know.
I can feel him with
His
me.
dad was great, too. I liked your dad so
Yeah.
much, yes. I was
But,
really sorry to hear that.
I know, and you emailed me.
Yeah.
She emails me all the time.
I was so sorry to hear that. Yes, go ahead.
And my father turns to the surgeon and said, "You don't have to say you're going to die. You don't have to say you're never going to breathe. You can say, I don't know." Because if I had believed him, I would have done nothing.
Yeah.
And if I had believed him, I would not have survived. And I didn't believe him, and I didn't listen to him. But it was also because of my father and my mother.
But it was a process to get to the point, because you had some woe is me, this is terrible. You told me you couldn't look in a mirror for a long time.
3 years.
3 years, because you hated a mirror, because when you looked in the mirror, all you saw was his chair.
Survivor's guilt. And I never realized what survivor's guilt was until a good family friend who used to be a nun put it into words for me. And she said, "I don't know how your mother can look at you." She didn't say it in a mean way.
Well, that doesn't sound nice. I don't know how your mother can look at you.
But she was saying it in a way of somebody who loves you so much to see you struggling like this. How can she see you struggling? So that's what she meant. So there were good intentions behind the words, but the way that I took it is exactly the way that you took it was, I agree. How can she look at me like this? And so the survivor's guilt did not affect me in the way of why did I survive, but it was more, I felt like a burden. And I felt bad about what the stress and trauma that I did not cause on myself, but onto my mother and my father and my sister and my brother. So how do I wash that away? And the way that I would wash that away was losing my sense of self. I used to work in fashion. I wore the same t-shirt every day for 3 years. I wear the same paper.
Doesn't sound cute.
It's not cute. I was not cute. I shaved my head bald every week. I could not care less about
how you looked. Yeah.
Or meeting new people. I didn't leave the house. I became agoraphobic. I only did physical therapy for 10 hours a day. Dina, my best friend, who's right here in the second row, she's very shy, Gayle. So, she actually would email me all the time and say, "I want to come visit you." Nope, I'm too busy. I'm doing physical therapy. I'm doing occupational therapy. I wasn't that busy. It's just that I couldn't accept any sort of acceptance from other people because I was so ashamed of the sense of responsibility for what happened to me and the reaction and the effect that it had on other people, that all I wanted to do was fix it.
Yeah.
And in order to fix it, it meant ignoring me.
Yep.
And I became a wallflower of who I was before. And I became so depressed for those 3 years that to get to this and experience what it meant to have post-traumatic stress disorder and to deal with that, and then to say, this is not who I am.
Yep. So you don't sound very fun to be around during this time.
No.
So how did you snap out of woe is me, wearing the same t-shirt, really feeling sorry for yourself? And I think anybody can relate to that because, compared to what you were to where you are now, how did you snap out of that to I am woman, hear me roar?
Christopher Reeve passed away. And the day that Christopher Reeve passed away, I remember Barbara Walters announced it. And I was on my way to Kessler, New Jersey.
What's Kessler?
A rehab hospital in West Orange.
Okay.
And I would get into, we had the used van that we bought that would leak water through the floor when it would rain. I'm like, it's from the floor, not
doesn't
from the
make
ceiling.
sense, but okay.
I was driving to New Jersey and I heard this just before I was on the way to doing rehab. And I just said but how did Superman just die? And I don't know the reason why. And it kind of felt like probably the way that my mom and my dad felt when they heard about my accident. Because I wanted to know why.
Yeah.
And I said, no. But it's Superman. How did Superman just dissolve and vaporize
Mm-hmm.
in midair. And how did this happen? And he is the biggest advocate, not just for people with disabilities or anything like that, but for people that don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And so I realized that day while I was doing therapy, well, what am I doing
Mm-hmm.
for my own life?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as it was a very subtle shift in thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I thought that, I realized I'm not doing anything. I have to do something.
Yep. And then what you did was build a company. So, because here your skin is dried up, you're not looking so great, you're not feeling so great, and you and your dad and your mom are in your kitchen and you're mixing all of these concoctions. If you all think I'm looking extra glowy and dewy, it's because I use his products and I used them this morning, as I often do, and you've got the retinol serum at night, all that good stuff. So you guys are in the kitchen and you're mixing all these concoctions and you come up with this friggin' company, which has changed your life and changed. Madonna uses it, Julianne Moore uses it. You know, you have a lot of famous people that use your stuff. And so from this company, you built this company, and what did it do for you? In addition to financially, but what did it do to you physically, spiritually, mentally? What did it do?
You know, the most important conversation that you could have with a person is the conversation that you have with yourself. Because that is confidence. When you can look in the mirror and be proud of the person that you see in the mirror, that is confidence. And that is the most important conversation that you could have with a person. And I like to call those mirror moments, because you really only have those 3 minutes after you shower before you open that bathroom door, when you're applying moisturizer, smoothing marine cream, and you're looking at yourself and you're thinking of, what do I need to get done today? What do I need to get done this week? Who do I need to be to get this done? And it becomes like a pep rally for yourself. And it becomes a sense of you're psyching yourself up. You
Every
might be
day.
singing bad ABBA. I karaoke bad ABBA all the time.
What's
And
your ABBA go-to song?
oh my God. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Today was gimme, gimme, gimme. Yeah, but it's different every day. But
I thought you were going to say Dancing Queen.
oh, that was yesterday. So Dancing Queen was yesterday.
I love Dancing
But
Queen.
the thing is that I leave the door open in the shower so I can play the music while I'm in the shower too. So I'm singing very badly, very loudly, and there's like the plumbers in the other bathroom, like, what, is somebody dying?
Yes.
Something's happening. Anyway, so when you're looking in the mirror, you're really having the most important conversation that you can have. And for me, that's what skincare is. It's a tool. I didn't start this as a brand. I started this as a tool from a hospital bed to reconnect with what it means to feel empowered.
You didn't start it as a brand, really?
No.
No?
I started this looking in the mirror because I developed rosacea and eczema. My skin doesn't sweat because of my injury.
Because of your injury, yeah.
And having it in a jar would be the same as looking at this, bottle of water. It doesn't matter to you and to me, but it's just a consumer good. And so I thought about, well, how can I connect my former life to my injury, to my new life in beauty, to a greater good? And so thinking about Christopher Reeve and how he was the impetus to kind of changing my life, I emailed the CEO of the Christopher Reeve Foundation. And then I met with them, and then they asked me to become one of their national ambassadors, and then a portion of our proceeds give back to them. But more than that, it's this story that each one of us has, that mine is very visual, and it felt like a scarlet letter in the beginning, where people just come up to me and they're like, what happened? Why are you in a wheelchair? Why? But the reality is...
Would people actually come up and ask you that?
Oh my God, yes. And I went to a restaurant here in the city, and one waiter asked my sister if I was allowed to drink wine, and she was like, yeah. I mean,
he asked your
drink
sister?
vodka. No, she drinks vodka, not wine.
But
So,
she asked your sister, is he allowed to drink
yeah,
wine?
like I wasn't a person.
Yes.
And so but that happened all the time.
But what is this? I think this is helpful. What is the proper thing to do? Is it rude to say, "Why are you in the chair?" Should we act like we don't see the chair? What is the proper protocol?
There's actually no. This is the thing, is that there's nothing rude about that, about asking that. I had to adjust to that.
Okay.
And so there's this unconscious bias that happens. Walking down Fifth Avenue before I had my injury, I'm blue-eyed, I'm white, I'm 6'3". I would get attention in different ways. A week later, I'm in a wheelchair going down Fifth Avenue. You're not even transparent. People look away. And that is a tough pill to swallow, because it teaches you not just the way that culture is, but this kind of innate sense of what it means to be human. And changing that way of thinking, I had to learn, you can't expect other people to change. You have to be part of implementing that change. And so that was the most difficult thing to learn as a young adult.
I've heard you say that it was actually vanity that saved your life.
Looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because I felt confident.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Well,
vanity saved your life.
You know, it's that dichotomy between beauty is skin deep, but it's not.
What is it?
Beauty is the way that you feel and the way that you know, you can hear somebody laughing before they enter a room and you already want to meet them. You can, you don't have to speak the same language, and you might like see the way that somebody has their posture when they walk down the street, and you already know their energy and you want to meet them. And so it's kind of that like,
that is true,
spine tingling sensation that becomes head turning. That it's not about being perfect in the way that like, you don't have to be a J. Crew, model to have that. And in fact, it's not that, it's the opposite. It's a lot of times what's different about you is what makes you attractive.
But you didn't get that lesson until this happened to you, true? I mean, were you somebody who was walking down the street noticing people who were in a wheelchair or somebody who was disabled? Were you that guy?
Ironically, so one of my very good friends had a spinal cord injury when I was in high school. And so I did go through that experience when I turned 16 and going to visit him in the hospital. But no, I can't say that I was emotionally intelligent enough to think beyond. I mean, when you're in your 20s, I think you're not the smartest. You haven't. I mean, I'm sorry if anybody's in their 20s.
There's some 20-year-olds that would beg to differ. They're going, "I'm pretty smart, Francesco."
You don't. You don't. You think you're smart, but
maybe are you saying you're not as empathetic?
You don't have the emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And no, you don't have the empathy. And if you do, then you're Malala or somebody, like you're about to win a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
But that's few and far between. I just think that there's a privilege that a lot of us have that we take for granted. Living in New York, living in the United States, and having what we have that we take for granted. And when you don't have that in the blink of an eye, you realize the other side of the spectrum. So.
And you've also talked about being a member of the LGBTQ community as well. And did that have any bearing on the person that you are or the way that you share your life? Was that another layer of complication for you, or no?
Absolutely. I mean, a person that was in the ICU that came to visit came out for me when I was in the ICU.
What do you mean came out? What do you mean?
Told my family.
At the time of your accident, you weren't out?
No.
You weren't?
No.
I don't know that part of the story.
Well,
Back up a little
here we
bit.
go.
Back up. I didn't know that.
So yeah,
wait a second.
yeah.
So they don't know that you're gay? Your mom and dad didn't know you were gay?
No, and I was on a, well, my mom and my sister had a conversation about it before, and but I hadn't told them yet. No,
Why hadn't you told them?
I wasn't ready. I was about to be ready,
Mm-hmm.
and I think when it happened, I felt kind of split in two in that moment, where there was a part of me that was angry because it was almost like, well, how much more can I deal with today? I mean, I was on life support. I had a machine breathing for me. I had a feeding tube up my nose. I had tubes attached to my fingers. And there were parts of me that were just like, am I worth the effort? Am I worth this effort as a human being? Like, I have 6 nurses, 3 doctors, constantly, like somebody's coming in and out of your room. And you start to think of like, am I worth this?
Yes.
And then like dealing with that part of it, when I look back on it now, it's liberating.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that that happened. Because I realized that what everybody else was dealing with in the room was, he's going to die.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody else was saying.
Mm-hmm.
He's on a ventilator for 2 weeks. The doctor and the nurse had to go to my mother and say, we have to decide whether to take him off the ventilator. But he's not going to breathe. Do you want to take that risk? And my mother had to say he would want to take that risk. And luckily, my diaphragm started working. And that's when I started singing Bad Habit karaoke. Because that's what I didn't do the breathing exercises that they told me to do. I just started singing
You
really
started
bad
singing.
karaoke.
Well,
And the guy in the room next to me started screaming for more morphine.
we're glad that whatever you took to make it work, we're glad that you made it work. But how did someone come out for you in ICU? How
Just,
did that
I
happen?
think it was this moment of me not surviving that they told my family, my mother and my father. And then my mother came to me and I couldn't even speak, you know? And
Were they upset with that revelation?
no,
No.
no, it was the opposite. It was, it felt lighter, it felt brighter.
Good.
It felt good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And that made me feel, you know, the irony is that like I could see my heart rate because I had all these monitors. I'm like, well, my heart rate has slowed down during this conversation that I'm having with my family about this, and my blood oxygen has gone up. And I'm like, my vitals are getting better as I'm doing this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you can really be yourself, though. That's
Yeah.
what happens when you can really live your true reality and be your true self. So for you, your disability is obvious. For some people, it's not. For some people, the LGBTQ may be obvious or not so obvious. What advice do you have for people who are uncomfortable disclosing that part of their lives, especially in the workplace?
Well, I think it's a very personal decision. And so the way that it happened to me is by like 1 in a million. Like that's not gonna happen in an ICU. And so if we're talking about the way that it typically would happen,
yes.
You have your time and place and the people that you feel comfortable telling, you know, your safe place, that's who you should speak to first about it. But it's your choice. It's your identity. And you have to do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable so that you evolve in the way that you want to evolve and you grow in the way that you want to grow. And you shouldn't feel shamed. Because I think that
it's easier said than done, though, sometimes, depending on your
Very
workplace
much,
and your
yeah.
colleagues and your managers and your bosses.
So I think that with what you just said, there are, you know, there's allyship,
Bless you. Yeah.
and then there's advocacy.
What's the difference between the two?
So if you have an ally, they probably are not a minority, or they probably are not LGBTQ,
Mm-hmm.
but they are your ally.
Mm-hmm.
And you can speak to them about how to navigate this process that feels very foreign to you and you feel uncertain about. But you have somebody who is in the system. I'm just calling it the system to be like your workplace or your business or, you know, what you're doing, and can help you navigate that process. Whereas advocacy is more about creating a change that's either bigger, like that can become, I don't know, changing rules in the office culture or changing rules at the government level. But that's a little bit different. So there are both of them, and they're both important.
You know, I don't know any company these days, and certainly after George Floyd, including CBS, where, you know, all of a sudden there were DEIs, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that seems to me to have waned a little bit. Do you believe that there is still room for improvement in that area? And what would that look like for you?
The best way we're at a bank, right?
Yes.
So the best way to think about your portfolio.
We like banks.
We love banks, right? So the best way to think about your portfolio that we have all learned is to diversify your portfolio.
Yes, yes.
Because if everything is the same,
Yes.
it will all fail. If everything is the same, it will all fail at some point.
Is that true? If I have all T-bills, will it fail?
If you have all bonds, yes.
Will it fail?
At some point, something will happen.
Okay.
If you had only
I've heard
Credit
T-bills
Suisse-
are the way to go these days. Just saying. Just saying. That's what I heard. But go ahead.
So diversity is more about, so D&I think about,
But you said if you have all the same, it will fail. You were making a point. What was the point you're making there?
you want the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The best in the world means having the best of different groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean the best of New York,
Mm-hmm.
all of the same.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean the best of like all Texas. It doesn't mean, you know, you want the best of anywhere that you can find anyone
Mm-hmm.
to make it the best overall perspective from every perspective,
Mm-hmm.
so that you're constantly challenging the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to unconscious bias, where by nature,
We all have unconscious bias.
because it's unconscious,
Mhm.
because we're humans, right? We're not robots. So if it's unconscious bias, you're probably thinking, well, why would I date him if he's disabled?
Mm-hmm.
Or why would I hire her
Mm-hmm.
if she just told me that she has an illness?
Mm-hmm.
Or is thinking about having kids?
Mm-hmm.
Or like there's an infinite amount of things that you could think
Mm-hmm.
when somebody divulges something about themselves that unconsciously you're just thinking like, maybe the other candidate's better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in order to change that way of thinking, you have to actively change management to have equity in specific ways of doing business, to have measurable differences in the equity with a time limit to achieve these goals. So saying
I don't know what you're saying, but just
25% diversity in the
Okay.
next 2 years,
okay.
let's say.
Okay.
You're giving a specific percentage to the change that you want
Mm-hmm.
with a time limit,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just saying, yes, we will, we love diversity.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Uh-huh.
But the reality is
You're
that
saying you have got to do something concrete, you're saying.
if they do something concrete, and when you look at the results, the companies that are more diverse are also more profitable. I mean, we were acquired Clark's Botanicals was acquired in 2015 by private equity, and we had 2 other brands that we worked alongside of in beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you were acquired, were you upset?
No,
You were not.
I removed my founder hat and I put on my CEO hat, and I said, whatever's best for the brand is what needs to happen. And I had a lot of conversations with coworkers that said, you realize that as soon as this happens, you can be fired the day after this happens. And I knew that right away. But after that, I was emotionally prepared for all of that. And I kind of became like Columbo in board meetings, where I would just say, I'm just going to absorb what's going on here, and I'll ask all the stupid questions.
How'd that go over?
I was the only founder that was retained as CEO.
Really?
So I learned from everybody in the room. And the stupid questions were not stupid, because it's like, well, why are you not profitable? And why are you not? And I started to realize that the diversity that we were able to include as our pillars were the thing that made Clark's Botanicals EBITDA positive. So we were profitable. We were by far the smallest brand, but we were profitable. And so I was able to build this little bubble within this huger, like much bigger conglomerate of brands, where we accepted the non-status quo. So we wanted to challenge each other and grow.
And how is Clark's Botanicals doing today?
I bought it back.
When did you do that?
2000, a month before COVID.
A month before COVID.
Yeah.
Now, how did that feel? You lost it and you bought it back. How did that feel?
It felt amazing, but it just felt like life to me. And I was constantly being told, oh, this is going to be impossible for you to buy it back. Don't even bother. And I'm like a honey badger, like honey badger don't, like, you're just going to keep going. So,
honey badger, go ahead.
Yeah, honey badger don't care. So I had dealt with near death.
Yes.
You could put me on the phone with the Pope.
Yes.
Like, Papa P, what's going on? I'd be like talking.
Yeah.
But
what scares you today, Francesco?
I'm not shy. So, like, the sense of, like, what scared me before doesn't scare me anymore. So you and I speaking, first of all, meeting you the first time, there was an instant connection. And and everybody else is like, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? And I'm kind of like, I don't know. Do you want me not to be ready? Like, you guys are trying to freak me out or something. And instead, when you and I met, it just was very natural. And I think before, I would have been very nervous, and I would have been not myself. I would have been, what kind of person would you want me to be? And that's who I would try to be. I don't care about that now. So now I'm just so true to myself, because I have no option but to be that. But with my father passing, what scares me is that the future of losing kind of that family connectiveness that all of us have to deal as adults.
I tell you, to me, there is nothing more important to me than a family connection, friends connection, whatever you call your family. The way I look at it, we will all be trivia questions one day. Even Barack Obama is going to be a trivia question. What was the name of the first Black president? Even he's going to be a trivia question. But when you do it right with your family, because at the end of the day, I don't care how successful you are, if your family is a mess, to me, nothing else matters. Nothing else is more important. And I saw up close and personal the family dynamic that day in your house. I'm telling you, I've never forgotten it, never. And when I met you, as I recall, you were single then.
Yes.
That seems to have changed.
Yes.
Please share with the class.
So I'm engaged. So
you're engaged, yes.
And it was 5 years ago, actually next week,
Mm-hmm.
by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
How did you two meet?
we met by chance. We did not meet online.
Mm-hmm.
We met by chance.
Is that bad? I'm thinking if I could go online and people would know it was me, I swear to God, I would do it. If I could do it and people would know it was me, I would do it.
I'll do it for you. I'll set up we'll come up with some, I don't know, a photo.
But Oprah said to me the other day, what difference does it make? I mean, so I said, but I don't want people to just want to go out with me because I'm Gayle King. She goes, so what? You are Gayle King. So what? I go, yeah, but I don't know. That doesn't seem right. Blah, blah, blah. So if I could go online and people to get to know somebody, by the way, I'm single. Just do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. I would do it. But it was interesting to me that your first thing, and we didn't meet online like that's a bad thing. Because there's a part of me that also feels meeting online, I don't know. But a lot of people are meeting online, really nice people.
Well,
But it was
I didn't
interesting that you quickly went, and it wasn't online.
That's a good point, actually.
I'm trying to make good points, Francesco. Did people set you up, or you just?
No, it was a dinner, and they thought that we would get along, and we met. And as soon as, first of all, dinner was at 4:45 p.m. on a Wednesday in June, and
were these with old people?
April. I know, right? So
was the average
they were
age
older,
80?
but not old.
Yeah,
I know. So I met this or maybe it was 5. I don't know. It was a time
it's
that
still early for
Yeah.
dinner
so
for grown-ups.
right. We're not eating soup.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I was at a work meeting and I said I'm going to be late. I'm by Columbus Circle. Suddenly I'm getting all these texts you better get your ass in the car and get down here in time and all.
Yeah,
this
because
stuff.
you're driving. You drive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't drive myself, but I'm in the car navigating. Okay, I'm gonna be late.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, you can't be late. I'm like, well, I'm going to be late because it's too early.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I make this joke who am I meeting? My future husband? And then no texts.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing after that. And then I'm sitting there something's happened. And he's reading all the texts.
He is.
So yeah. So he's seeing all of this happen. And then I show up and it's even before I show up, I'm sitting there kind of thinking this jackass knows everything that's already unfolding in front.
Yes.
And I'm realizing it as I walk in. And I always bring little gift bags with me. Everybody's getting gift bags today. But I had smaller ones. And I walk in and everybody's saying hello and we started speaking and then we clicked. We clicked.
And here we are today.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me you said as I walk in.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't I don't think about that. I don't think about the irony is that I can't move, but I never sit still.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
You're not hung up about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the wheelchair doesn't matter to me.
No, it's I was once talking to Stevie Wonder once, and he said, and I was watching the so-and-so movie, you were watching? Yes, I was watching the so-and-so movie. So
Yeah.
it just made me think of that when you said it as I walk in. So as we wrap up this conversation, what is it that you want this audience to know? We were talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We were talking about how you went from point A to point B. What is your closing message?
I mean, my closing message probably is thinking about how my story might not be all that different from yours.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to know what does it mean to be where you are
Mm-hmm.
today and to know everything that you've had to overcome
Mm-hmm.
to have this sense of equity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you view the world with everything that you're seeing in dealing with national news
Mm-hmm.
and keeping the sense of optimism and wanting to move forward?
Well, I mean, optimism. I'm by nature a very optimistic person, but I'm very worried about what is happening in the country today. It feels like a shit show to me that we're sitting and waiting. Is he going to be indicted? Is he not going to be indicted? And if he is indicted, what does that mean? And who's going to be when we go to the polls next week, next year, who are the candidates going to be? That's scary to me. I feel that we are more polarized and more divided than we ever have been before. Is our money okay? I mean, so I don't feel very settled at this particular time. And I feel like I have a front row seat to just watching us implode, and it scares me a little bit.
What do you do to feel better about that?
Well, but you can't stay in that place.
Yeah.
I just refuse to stay in that place. That's why I so admire the optimism that you have, because I think for many people, having an accident like that would just totally destroy their world and they wouldn't be able to come back. And that's why I think it's so important that you tell the story that you do. But that's not the message to the group. I asked the question, Mr. Clark Wise, to this group of people as you're sitting here and we're looking at you. What is it that you want them to know? What is it that you want them to think about?
I want you to think about the biggest dream version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything could make that happen, what's stopping you from making that happen tomorrow? Because nobody deserves success more than you. And that's the truth. There's not anybody
Than any of us in this room, you're saying?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Than anyone. I mean, why should somebody else deserve the success that you want other than you?
Well, maybe some people work harder. Maybe some people are smarter. Maybe some people are better at their jobs. I think there's a variety of reasons. But
I understand that, but we're all good at something. And there's a way to learn more about ourselves to develop our best selves.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
So working harder, you can work harder. But, having that sense of self-respect that you know that you did the best that you could have done, and that you didn't hold yourself back, and you didn't feel kind of held back by anything, and being your true honest self to yourself, not denying yourself and respecting yourself to want more.
Okay. And my last question is, will I be invited to the wedding?
You already emailed me
don't-
this. She already emailed me this. She's like, can I officiate? Can I? And what about this?
I'm
and
shameless.
You
Would
took
you
a
like me to read
photo
a poem?
with your nail. She wrote a letter, and you had your finger on the. She's like, and this part, and this is what I'm doing right here.
Yes. Would you
Officiate.
like me to read a letter? Would you like me to sing a
Of
song? Even though I have a
course.
shitty voice. I'm just so
Are you good at
happy
ABBA?
for you.
Can you sing ABBA?
I can't sing it all, but I do love singing.
Okay, good.
Right now I'm trying to get tickets to Beyonce. I'm trying to get tickets to Taylor Swift. I'm going to see Adele on Friday.
Hey.
It's her last concert in Las Vegas. And I wanted to be there for the last night. I'm trying to get tickets to, Phantom of the Opera, guys, is closing. I've seen Phantom 9 times. I love that.
Yes.
I love that opera so much. And I want to go on the last day. It's April 16th. I'm trying to figure out how I can get tickets for that. So, I mean, I'm your girl when it comes to music. I won't give a performance, but I will sing with gusto with everyone else.
This sounds like the perfect OkCupid profile.
Thank you, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much again, everyone, for your attendance today. I am not sure about all of you, but I feel like I was frantically just capturing quotes from this conversation with how meaningful and impactful it was. So thank you so much
I
again.
just heard something good the other day.
Yes.
I just heard something very good the other day. That they said a setback is only a setup for a comeback. I'd never heard that before.
Add it to the list of quotes that you heard here today.
You've heard that before? Yeah. You have? I'd never heard that before, and I said, let me write that down. I thought the person I was talking to had just made it up. A setback is only a setup for a comeback. Isn't that good?
It's a good one.
And that's how I feel. That's how I feel when I think about you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys. Thank
Thank
you. Guys.
you. Thank you.